There's something about October that feels different in the air. The nights seem heavier, even the shadows cling longer than usual, as if the world itself is remembering. Every year, we call it Halloween, a night of costumes, candies, and clever disguises. But before the laughter, before the mask became playful, there was another story, a darker one, a story of fire and fear, of offerings, disguises, and the belief that for one night every year, the dead could walk among the living. Welcome to LilWeird, where curiosity tiptoes through the dark. I'm Jane, and tonight the world wears a mask. It's the season of thin veils, flickering candles, and stories that breathe when the lights go out. Now, I know that most of you, my dear listeners, might be here hoping for ghost stories. It's Halloween after all, and most people lean into the scary, the spooky, and the shivers that come with it. But I'm not most people. You see, whenever I try to read, write, or even record something truly scary, strange things happen. And tonight, I'd rather not invite that kind of energy in. If anyone out there wants to talk about these stories, though, you're absolutely welcome to. I've got a few spooky tales of my own to share someday, since, well, weird is basically my third name. But no, I refuse to do it alone. What follows is a journey into the shadows of Halloween's past. Parts of it are documented, parts of it are inferred, and parts of it remain mysteries. Where evidence ends, we mark our footsteps carefully. So instead of summoning ghosts, let's summon the truth. Tonight, we trace the forgotten roots of Halloween. We'll walk through Samhain, when the Celts lit sacred fires to honor their dead. We'll stand beside the Druids, whose rituals blurred the line between protection and sacrifice. We'll follow the trail from those fires to the soft glow of a modern jack-o'-lantern and ask, what darkness did we inherit and what did we disguise as play? Because for all our modern joy, Halloween still sits at the crossroads between harvest and decay, light and shadow, life and death. So light your candle, keep your door unlocked just long enough for a story to sleep through, and let's begin. On October 31st, we wear masks and play pretend. But more than 2,000 years ago, some people dress not to pretend, but to survive. Long before Halloween was a night of play, it was a night of passage. For the Celts, Samhain, spelled as Samhain but pronounced as Samhain, marked the hinge of the year, the end of harvest, the onset of darkness, the closing of one cycle, and the birth of another. To them, the boundary between worlds was thin enough to tear. This was when the other world opened and its denizens walked freely among humankind. They spoke of the Aishi, the supernatural beings we call fairies. They would emerge because their earthen mouths, the she, spelled as Sidhe, but pronounced as she, would literally yawn wide on Samhain night. The people didn't worship these entities, they appeased them. Offerings of food and drink were customary, not just for hospitality, but to beg for their protection against the rigors of the coming winter. Because if you didn't appease them, they would quickly become more malevolent, seeking revenge. During Samhain, their roads were said to rise to meet ours. But the Celts also feared another host, the Sluagh. It's spelled as Sluagh, but pronounced as Sluagh. The restless dead. They were the souls of the wicked or the unburied, carried on the western wind, searching for warm houses and living bodies to claim. It was said that if you heard their approach in the dark, you must lie flat and hold your breath, lest they mistake your soul for a vacant room. So the living prepared. Fires were doused to hide the smoke of their chimneys. Doors were barred, windows sealed, and bowls of food left on thresholds, a peace offering to whatever passed through the night. Some painted their faces with ash or wore animal skins to confuse wandering spirits. Others carved symbols into wood or set stones around their homes as wards. These acts were not called magic then. They were apotropaic rites, deeds meant to turn away evil. At the center of each village, the people gathered to light the sacred fire, the heart of Samhain. Each household extinguished its hearth, letting the old year's flame die with the harvest. Then, from the great communal blaze, they carried home new embers wrapped in clay or peat, relighting their fires with a spark of divine protection. It was more than a ritual, it was a renewal, a way of binding the community under one shared flame. In those early fires, animals were sometimes sacrificed. For food, yes, but also as offerings to unseen powers. Their bones were thrown into the blaze, crackling in the dark, their smoke rising like prayers. From these charred remains came the word bonfire, the ancestor of what we now call bonfire. Over centuries, the term shed its darker syllable, but not its meaning. The bonfire was more than warmth, it was defiance, a luminous barrier between life and death, light and shadow. People believed that as long as the flames roared, the dead would stay on their side of the veil, and the living would make it safely through the long, cold night. To the modern ear, these stories sound like superstition, but to them, it was ecology of spirit and survival, a conversation with the dark that fed their world as surely as rain fed their fields. But as the veil thinned, fire became more than protection, it became sacrifice. Roman chroniclers spoke of it first. They wrote of druids, priests of oak and mace, gathering at the turning of the year to perform rites that bound life to the cycle of death. According to Julius Caesar, in his commentary De Bellio Gallico, the Druids built massive wicker effigies, towering men of woven wood, and within them, they placed animals and sometimes humans. The fire rose, carrying the offerings to their gods of sky and earth. Archaeology centuries later uncovered what may be their echoes, the bog bodies. The bog bodies of Ireland and Northern Europe. Men with throats cut, limbs bound, bodies preserved in the cold pit. Some scholars see these deaths as punishment, others as offering, rituals of renewal meant to feed the land. And still others believe the sacrifices were meant to ward off what the fire could not destroy, the sluwa, those devouring souls who swept across the land on western winds. The smoke from these fires, they said, kept the restless dead aloft, unable to descend upon the living. The logic was simple, although terrifying, to offer life so that life might continue, to burn flesh to shield the spirit. Over time, the story shifted. Later, writers claimed that Druids worship a horned hunter of the night, a spirit of wilderness and death, cloaked in shadow and crowned with antlers. They said he ruled the other world and demanded tribute when the year turned dark. In one version of the legend, the Druids carried torches from village to village, chanting prayers to this horned one. At each door, they stopped demanding an offering. The treat was food or life. Refusal was met with the mark of the dead, a hexagram drawn in blood upon the door. It's a story many historians now doubt more likely a later Christian parable than a record of fact, but its power lingers because of what it represents, the bargain between fear and survival. Whether the Druids truly shed blood in those fires or not, every tale ends the same way, with the people standing before the dark, offering something or anything to keep the void at bay. Because when the air grows cold and the night stretches long, Humans have always done the same thing. We feed the fire and whisper into the smoke, a promise to whatever listens that we will see another dawn. By the time the sacred fires dimmed and the druids' chants became memory, the rituals of protection remained. Only the forms changed. The living no longer lit great wicker men, but they still lit candles. They no longer poured blood into the earth, but they still left food by the door. These gestures carried a single message. We remember you. We fear you. Please pass us by. The line between reverence and revelry is thin, and nowhere is that more evident than in what Halloween became. When Christianity is spread through the Celtic lands, it did not erase the old beliefs, it absorbed them. It painted new names over old gods. Old gods became saints. Old fires became candles. The horned one became the devil. And the night of the dead became a vigil for the saints. But naming something holy doesn't make it harmless. The people still remember what the priests tried to bury. They still lit their fires. They still wore their masks. And though they prayed in Latin, the language of fear remained the same. The mass stayed, only now they were made of joy. By the late Middle Ages, the solemn rituals of All Hallows had turned into a festival of disguise. People dressed as angels and devils, the blessed and the damned, mirroring the very souls they once feared to meet. It was kind of rehearsal, a night to mock death safely, to laugh at what once terrified you. When Irish and Scottish immigrants crossed the Atlantic, they brought their autumn traditions with them. But America, with its appetite for reinvention, took the old bones of Samhain and wrapped them in something bright and sellable. The jack-o'-lantern became a decoration, the soul cake became candy, and the sacred fire became porchlight. We turned a night of remembrance into a night of performance. We commercialized the shadows. We took a vigil for the dead and make it a costume party. Yet something persists. Even as the masks get cheaper and the lights grow brighter, there is still that pulse, that instinct that makes us look over our shoulder. The same one that once drove our ancestors to light fires, leave food by doors, and whisper prayers against the wind. We wear masks now for fun, but perhaps what we're really doing is remembering how to forget fear. Laughter has become our protection spell, mockery our exorcism. We turn death into decor so we can face it without trembling. Maybe that's why Halloween endures, because even when we strip it of its gods, its ghosts, and its rituals, it still speaks the same language, the art of surviving the dark by making it beautiful. So, when you see the masks and the candles, the candy and the costumes, remember that they were never meant to erase fear. They were meant to hold it, that they meet long enough for us to laugh. And so, the circle turns again. The harvest is gone, the nights grow longer, and the veil, that thin, uncertain fabric between worlds, drifts close once more. We have walked through centuries tonight, from the sacred fires of Samhain to the porch lights of Halloween, from offerings of fear to offerings of fun. But through it all, one truth remains. We have never truly stopped talking to the dark. The Celts called it respect. The Druids called it balance. The church called it remembrance. And we call it entertainment. But the impulse is the same. Every candle we light, every mask we wear, every knock at the door is an echo of a conversation older than history itself. A promise whispered into the wind. Take this offering and let us see another dawn. The veil is never fully gone. It lingers in the quiet moments. In the creak of a door when no one's there, in the flicker of a light that shouldn't have moved, in the way October air feels heavier than it should. It lingers because it belongs to us, woven into our rituals, our laughter, our longing to believe there's more beyond the visible. Maybe that's why we keep this night alive, because part of us misses the mystery. Because part of us remembers what it meant to gather close to the fire, to whisper names of the dead, to feel the cold breath of the unknown and know that we were still here. Halloween has always been one of my most awaited times of the year. Not because of trick or treating or because it fell on school breaks, but because it just felt right for me. Dark, a little weird, full of mystery, but still fun with a touch of mischief. It's the season that fits my personality so well. When I was younger, I'd always plan what costume I'd wear, what spooky things I'd do, but I never really got to join any party or event. My family was traditional. They believe spirits roam the earth during this time, so it was safer to stay home. And when I got older, I still did. Mostly because the city gets hectic with crowds rushing to cemeteries or parties, and I prefer the quiet instead. Still, Halloween always meant something special to me. I'd wait for those magandang kabibayan Halloween specials, the eerie music, the reenactments, the stories that blurred real and unreal. It was exciting and just the right kind of scary. At one point, I even became fascinated with witchcraft and paganism. I knew about the Samhain early on, though I wasn't sure how to pronounce it then. I remember reading about it in The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. Yes, there was indeed a passage referencing the festival, and it was disturbingly vivid, even if it's fictional. Back then, I didn't think of it too much. But when I learned more about the darker origins of Halloween, and later I also heard our pastor mention that even former occultists admitted that there's really something dark about Halloween. Something that isn't just a superstition or story. I started to look at it differently, not in fear, but in curiosity. What if beneath all the fun and mischief, there really was something sacred? Something we've long forgotten how to see. Still, I've never encountered anything dark during this season. Maybe because here in the Philippines, we have no winter, no dying harvest, and our traditions mix remembrance with family, not fear. We visit graves, light candles, cook, pray. Our ghosts are greeted, not warded off. And I think that's beautiful. I'm not here to tell anyone how to see Halloween. Believe what you believe. If it's just fun for you, let it be. But for me, it's fascinating how perspectives evolve, how curiosity reshapes what you think we know. Maybe this is what awakening feels like, to look at something familiar and suddenly see all its layers: the sacred, the strange, the dark, and the delightful. I guess that's what LilWeird has always been about. Not just chasing what's odd or creepy, but rediscovering the weird and the wonderful. Because as they say, you can come as you are, but you won't leave as you came. So tonight, if you carve a pumpkin or whisper a story in the half light, pause for a moment, remember what this night once was: a prayer, a plea, a pact between life and death. Because even now, the veil hasn't closed, it only waits. Patient, familiar, for the next October wind to steer it awake. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, don't forget to follow LilWeird Podcast, where we explore stories that sit between fact and folklore, reason and reverence, the curious and the almost real. If you'd like to go even deeper into tonight's story, tracing the full history of Samhain, the Druids, and the origins of modern Halloween, there is a special extended version of this episode available exclusively for our LilWeird subscribers on Spreaker and Coffee. It's a more documentary-style exploration. Less myth, more history, all still wonderfully weird. You'll find the link in the show notes along with sources and references used in this episode. For more strange tales and reflections, visit LilWeird Universe on Substack and Coffee, where every post keeps the wonder alive. Share this episode with someone who loves a good mystery, and tell me, what do you believe about Halloween? Is it superstition, celebration, or something that still whispers in the dark? Stay curious, stay human, and stay just a little weird. Thanks for listening.